I'm here at Levi Stadium with Cam Inman. Cam has covered the 49ers for 24 years. You can read him in the Bay Area News Group, the Mercury News. You can follow him on Instagram, Cam Inman. He has 49ers.cam. He has 155,000 followers. So you've covered the Niners for a quarter century.
Mm-hmm.
They have not won a Super Bowl in that span.
Yeah, it's my fault.
And my question for you is, how do you think this team, not knowing yet what they're going to do, compares to the best teams you've seen that have gotten close, right?
Oh, without a doubt, this is the best team.
Without a doubt, this is the best team.
Well, without a doubt, it's the best offense.
Yeah.
It is the most exciting and fun offense to watch because there are so many players that you can. I mean, it's not reliant upon one guy, right? I mean, with back in the day, you had Frank Gore running the ball for Harbaugh. You had Kaepernick running crazy at the catching everybody off guard. And there haven't been many great offenses in the 25. Like Jeff Garcia, Pro Bowl quarterback, he had T.O. to throw to, right? Garrison Hurst was there making a comeback, kind of. But this has the biggest supporting cast where it's not on any one guy. That's why anybody can pick apart whoever you want. It's like, well, Brock doesn't have to do it all because he has, well, that's great. But like Steve Young had tremendous weapons. Joe Montana had so many weapons. So without a doubt, it's the best offense. And I think whether it's the best team is really going to be dependent on what defense shows up in these next 2 games, maybe 3 games, because it's not a championship caliber defense where it's like, oh, that defense is being compared. Like last year or the year before, everybody was making comparisons to the best Niner defense of all time. And I'm like, that is pump the brakes because you got to actually do stuff in the postseason. And that's why, like, we worry about some of the missed tackles this season or whatever. There's times where, you got to do what you got to do.
You could have walked behind us. That's okay.
Yeah.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah. By here, maybe. Anyhow, I think it's a really good team, and I think if they don't win Saturday, I'm going to be astonished. If they don't win the Super Bowl, I'd say it's a letdown because I don't know how much better this team can get because it is such a dynamic team. And I worry a little bit about the defense, more about like I want to see a better defensive front get on somebody. And now you have a young quarterback coming in Jordan Love who's getting all sorts of flowers this week. And it's like, well, let's see what you can do as the stage gets bigger.
Yeah, but they've been able to run the ball. That's the thing with Green Bay.
Yeah.
Armstead back-ish.
Yeah, I mean, that's everybody's counting it, but everybody's saying that's going to be the magic elixir, that the run defense will be solved because now the linebackers are going to know which gap to stay in to go get their guy, which is awesome. Great, if that's the case. Now, they faced Aaron Jones before, repeatedly. I mean, they played him twice in the playoffs. He's never gone for 100 yards rushing on this team in like 6 or 7 meetings. But the last time they played him in the playoffs 2 years ago in snowy Lambeau, that's when Aaron Rodgers kind of like regressed and just was like checking it down to Aaron Jones, so he got like 120 receiving yards, which was useless. The Niners like to pump up the stat that for the last 44 games, no opponent has rushed for 100 yards, no opposing running back. But it's like, well, that's the NFL. Like, not everybody has a 100-yard back. Aaron Jones has gone for over 100 the last 4 games. I would be stunned if he did it on this team because that's their sole focus is on stopping him and then making, Jordan Love try to throw the ball around the yard.
That's more a situational stat, too, than it is a stout defense. I mean the defense is good, but you play from in front, it's hard for teams to run for 100 yards on you. Like
in, 2011, 2012, when Fangio had this defense humming, they had like a similar 100-yard stat kind of thing, and Marshawn finally ended it like in a regular season finale, and it's like, that run defense was legit. This one, it's not there yet. Could be, because I don't think the Packers or the Lions or the Bucks would be any threat to that. And then you get to the Ravens, and the threat to that would be Lamar Jackson if he makes it to the Super Bowl.
Well, you don't have to be you don't have to be a perfect team to win a championship, right?
I don't know, because this team is...
Do you think you have to be a perfect team to win a championship?
This team has not won a championship in almost 30 years, so it's like...
But how many teams that win championships are perfect teams?
There is not a perfect team in the NFL right now. So, but like, this is as close to...
An imperfect team will win the championship this year.
Absolutely.
But an imperfect team wins the championship most years, would be my theory.
Right. But I mean, then we start getting in the weeds and say, well, what kept them from winning in past years? And everybody's like, and it's going to come up again this postseason because it's going to be like, Shanahan didn't close the deal against the Chiefs. He didn't close the deal against the Rams 2 years later. And it wasn't that they couldn't rally or come back in the fourth quarter, it's that they couldn't hold the lead.
Right.
So, like, why are you guys worried about whether they can come back or not? It's like they haven't had to come back. Against the Bengals, the Vikings, they came back a little bit against the Browns without Debo, without McCaffrey, and then with a kicker that missed it. I don't have like concerns about like the comeback ability. And my concerns are, can they finish it off? Because that's something that they have not done.
Yeah. So rank we're not going to, let's give them Packers, and let's just say,
okay,
you're in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Rank the AFC, or you know what? You could include Detroit here. Include Detroit and Green Bay. Include Detroit and Green Bay. Detroit, Green Bay, the Bucks, everybody left. Rank them like the last team the Niners would want to see.
Well,
first. Who's first on that list?
Ravens.
Really?
Yeah, because they just beat them.
Mahomes? What if the
I don't think the
Cam, what if the Chiefs have beaten Buffalo and Baltimore on the road,
True.
and you get them in the Super Bowl?
That would tell me that their receivers are actually something, and they haven't been anything else. I thought the Chiefs would be out, and I don't think the Chiefs are going to win this week. I actually think the Lions would be maybe the next toughest, just because they
have Buffalo. Ahead of Kansas City.
I really like Buffalo.
Okay.
I think Buffalo could do it.
So Baltimore, Buffalo.
Yeah, Baltimore, Buffalo. I think the Lions are a really good team. I think the Bucs are going to beat them, because I think this is just going to be an emotional letdown for Detroit, because it was such a big win to beat the Rams. And I think they're a great team. It's a great story. And I think the Bucs have like the same thing with Packers. They have nothing to lose, that nobody thinks they're going to win. But the Bucs have playoff tested. They've gone to the postseason the last 4 years.
With Tom Brady. I mean, Baker on the
road. But like Baker's playing well, and it's like they got enough parts where it's like they might be able to pull something off, like if the ball bounces the right way. And then if it's Detroit back here on Sunday, fine. I mean, it's okay. It'd be fun, but it's like the Niners, you got to get these 2 wins. You got to. So I asked Nick Bosa last week about his goals for the playoffs, because he didn't have a sack last postseason, right?
I saw this.
And I tried to say it delicately, and Nick's very smart about it, and I'm not saying like throwing him under the bus, like, bro, you got to step up. But he said, like, I just want to get 3 wins. And I thought, he's like, I just want to win. I want to win 3. And I thought it was great that he said 3, because under Shanahan, they've won 2, lost 1. Won 2, lost 1. Won 2, lost 1. They need to win 3, because it's all about winning the Super Bowl.
So did you ask that question with a thought in your head that Nick needs to be better than he's been?
Yeah. Yeah, don't you think so?
Better how? I mean,
well, first of all, I'm not worried about like the sack numbers, or if he's going to have a monster game at some point. He just needs to have a constant impact, and he has. People like watch the film, they'll see it, and really need somebody on the other side of him to do the same, because I think everybody got too big expectations when he and Chase Young debuted in Jacksonville together, and they meet in the backfield at Trevor Lawrence at Buckeye bookends, awesome. They force a fumble. And then where's Chase Young been since? I mean, he looks like a perfect prototype defensive end. And I'm not saying he lacks effort. It's just there hasn't been the production that you would expect out of him, especially if anybody going on the other side of Bosa. And Bosa's getting doubled somewhat, gets held, but he still needs to make a bigger impact. And when you're going against a young quarterback who might be a little stargazed under the lights, I think it's a great time for both of those guys to step up, especially now that you have Armstead and Hargrave coming up the middle. And you're rushing for it. It's like, do they need to rush an extra guy? I don't think so.
Well, it's not, the blitz is, Jordan Love's been okay against the blitz.
Yeah, and that's not what we thought Steve Wilkes would blitz more this season. Right. And that's why I think the first month or so they were trying to figure it out. And then, as Bosa said last week, he's like, well, then Steve Wilkes figured what we do best around here is rush 4 and play zone coverage.
Yeah. So was that because you're a perfect person to ask about this. We haven't talked really like that Steve Wilkes is going to the sideline story died a while ago.
Yeah.
Right. But it was such a turning point in the season.
Was it
though? At least it was on paper, right?
Yeah.
This thing happened and then B happened.
Right.
But it sounds like you don't think they're related necessarily.
I think it's just one part of it. I think there's so many other factors to it of just how well they get used to play. I mean, the cornerback play has improved over the last couple months, right? Mooney Ward's had a great season. I mean, he said going into this year he wanted to be a Pro Bowl and All-Pro, and he did. And Diamador Lenore is a guy who thinks he's probably better than everybody in the NFL, which is kind of fun.
It is. You have to play that position.
Totally.
I always say cornerbacks celebrate all wins.
Yes. Yes, and like for 25 years, I've said cornerback is you're in a no-win situation in the NFL. They want you to fail. All the rules are set up for you to fail.
Yeah.
If you're a great one, they're just going to pick on the other guy.
Right.
And so that's why they need a Diamador Lenore to play really well opposite Ward. So I think the fact that those guys matured into the system and Wilkes kind of figured out what to call and what not to call and just kind of back off and let them play, that's why I think they've had success.
All right, give me your hottest topic, but it's hot topic for a reason, Brock.
Oh, God, I thought you were going to say Kristen Juszczyk's fashion design.
Kristen Juszczyk, she surpassed you for Instagram followers thanks to her fashion design.
She has
and
earned it.
A lot of people.
I mean, it is a great story because she's been working.
She picked up like 400,000 IG followers in like 3 days.
But think about what her career now as a fashion designer is what she's made. I mean, it's awesome, and we're doing stories on her rather than talking about who's going to win the trenches. What do you think, Feliciano or Burford this week?
Well, you can do that story too.
No, I
want to see
cannot.
that story.
Do you think anybody in their right mind wants to know about the interior offensive line?
Well, sometimes a journalist's job is not to do what gets the most clicks, Cam. It's to do the most important thing.
Well, that's a journalist's job, but there's no more pure journalists in the world.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
We're working on that though.
Yeah. What does that mean?
Every year, I try to mentor young journalists. Go back down to Cal Poly and California Scholastic Press Association. Apply now if you're a high school kid.
How do they apply?
They go to cspaworkshop.org. There it is. I've been doing it for 25 years. We try to keep. There's still hope for journalists. So
yeah.
Anyhow, what were we saying?
No, that's
okay. The hot button story.
I wanted to ask you about Brock.
Well, I think it really is the storyline of the NFL that's gone under the radar the whole season. A kid who, under a year ago, has a broken wing. His elbow is torn. He can't throw a football. His career's in jeopardy. And he undergoes a radical procedure to fast track him back on the field. He gets on the field for week 1, and he throws for more yards in 49ers history through 16 games than any quarterback. And it's amazing. And it doesn't get the credit it deserves. It's not like this guy was throwing dink and dunks. He was throwing lasers to the boundaries. He was going deep. He's pointing guys in all sorts of ways, and he's running the offense at the same time that Shanahan loves, where I've never seen Shanahan trust a quarterback more. And just, here's what you do, rip it, go for it. And he's done that to a T. And he hasn't quaked. It's just, the only crack I saw was against the Ravens after he threw a couple picks and he threw one across his body towards Kittle. And I'm like, that's a panic Purdy. We don't need to see panic Purdy ever again, because that was kind of like a Jimmy throw where you go over the middle and that's where bad things happen. And he hasn't done that for the most part. So I'm excited to see how he does back on the playoff stage, because it was almost like last year him getting injured was such a great excuse that everybody hopped on, because it was a valid excuse. But
it's more valid by the week for watching Philly too.
Right. And it's just kind of like, okay, well, now you have him healthy and you have a great team, so turn him loose again and get to the Super Bowl.
You talk to him a lot. You are among the group of people that are around him all the time.
Yeah.
And he's interesting because he does say things. Like I watched the interview he did with Mayoko the other day. He says things. He'll bring up, he'll talk about game manager monikers and what was Tom Brady when he was young and that kind of thing. He doesn't talk in a way that sounds like a hot soundbite, right? He doesn't sound like he's about to launch a podcast, although you never know, he might.
But it's kind of like how he plays. There's a sneaky swaggerness to him.
So just give us you're around him. What do you think he's really like? Because I think there's a question of like, is the person that we see kind of guarded? Who's the guy the teammates see, right? Yeah,
I think he's like Garoppolo was like, I'm one of the guys. I'm a high school linebacker trapped in this quarterback position with these good looks and great demeanor, right? And Brock is more of he's more of a pure quarterback, that he studies the game so well. He can relate to anybody as he wants to, but part of that is because he's curious. So he's been here for 2 years, and he's approachable. So you can go by his locker and say something, but he'll ask as many questions back to you as you might to him. Like I remember last year, he was just trying to get it settled in the Bay Area and didn't know much about the area. And I go, have you gone to Pebble Beach? And have you gone to the Bay? Have you gone to Big Sur? And he's like, oh, I'm gonna write this stuff down. He really wants to know and learn things from you. And I'm like, by the way, you play quarterback for the 49ers. So as the 49er beat writer, I'm going to tell you right now, I basically cover 2 things. I cover the quarterback, and then I cover the rest of the team. And I go, there's so much emphasis here in the Bay Area on what the quarterback does, thanks to Joe and Steve.
Yeah.
And John Brody or whatever. But it's so quarterback driven. That's how the NFL has become too.
And Alex and Colin.
But so Brock understands it. So he understands that everything he does may not be accepted by everybody, and he's not so guarded where I can't do anything. I'm not petrified by the spotlight. He just accepts it as part of the job, and that's why I think that's why he's comfortable, because every year we write down our top 3 candidates for the Gary Niver Media Award of which player exhibits the best professionalism and cooperation with the media. And one of my votes went to Brock because he's so very transparent, and the whole thing he went through this year with his arm surgeries, and it wasn't just to us, but it was all media. And he would explain, how he felt and how things were coming along, but he'd also often deflect all the credit towards his teammates and coaches, never saying, I'm having a great frickin' year, right?
Yeah.
And it's like he knew everybody, like he understood the situation he was in. But he also knew he contributed to it. Whereas I think Garoppolo often deferred to everybody, and that even happened in the game, where it's like, well, Kyle wants me to hand it off 30 times, I'll hand it off. Whereas Brock's like, I want to take this game by the throat. I am going to find Ayuk on the other side of the field on the boundary when I'm not supposed to do it, and I will throw a laser to him and not worry about getting it pick-sixed.
Yeah, the throw in the Jacksonville game to the back of the end zone. To Ayuk, to somebody, Kittle or Ayuk.
I think it was to Ayuk because, as much as everybody said, "Oh, that's the worst decision ever," and we're watching this, and it's like, okay, he lobs it over 2 defenders, over Kittle, but it's right to the spot where Ayuk could be.
Yeah.
But even the week 1, he threw 2 touchdowns to Ayuk in week 1 in Pittsburgh. And one of them was front right pylon where Patrick Peterson's draped all over Ayuk, and there's no way he's throwing that there.
Yep.
And he threw it. I'm like,
Peterson spent the week kind of talking too. Remember?
Yeah, and Brock after the game says, "Oh, was that against Patrick Peterson?" As if he didn't know. It was beautiful. It was like the greatest shade to throw on the guy. And it's so because he has that connection with Ayuk, he can do it with Debo. McCaffrey's obviously I think McCaffrey's still the number 1 offensive catalyst here.
Yeah.
And then Kittle is. Kittle can do whatever you need him to do, right? If you need him to catch 3 touchdowns against the Cowboys, he'll do it. If you need him to pancake 3 Cowboys, you can do that. It's fun. It's a fun offense to watch. That's why I said it's I really enjoy watching it.
I have a buddy a few years ago. He told me he played in the NFL, and he told me something a few years ago. He said, there's the perception about quarterbacks, like who they are. He said, and the funny thing about quarterbacks is if you're in a social situation with quarterbacks, a lot of them are, not all of them, but some of them can be really awkward because they are used to it always being about them, right? Like the quarterback is supposed to be about everybody else, but what happens then in return is it becomes all about them. And he said it's funny in social situations, there's usually 2 types of quarterbacks. There's the guys that really are everybody, like they truly are like the guy's guy, right, type guy. And there are guys that are so much kind of the guy's guy that it actually makes them awkward.
Yes.
Because they don't know how to handle 7 people sitting around having a group conversation.
I think Brock's so grounded, and he's grown up like that, because he was Mr. Hotshot Arizona in high school, and then he goes to Iowa State because of Mr. Hotshot in Iowa State. Where's Iowa State? Is that Ames?
Ames, yeah.
It is Ames?
Yep.
Go Cyclones. Sarah Simpson, neighbor.
Subscriber, maybe?
Maybe. Well, she was like, when they drafted Brock Purdy, I'm like, who's Brock Purdy? She's like, that's my guy.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay.
It's funny, every time he throws back over the middle cam, I'll get an Iowa State fan be like, oh, there's Brock. Like, they recognize that guy. Yeah.
When I'll tell you when, for rookie minicamp, when they brought him in for the first time and we met them, and they take him in the local media room back here for 15-minute interview, 5-minute interview, whatever they can handle, and Brock was great, 15 minutes. And he leaves, and I'm walking by like Eric Branch or something. I go, damn it, I really like that guy. I go, he's got something to him. And I go, he's not going to have a chance in hell to play here because Trey Lance is here, and Garoppolo is still kind of around. But I'm like, boy, he seems like he knows what he's doing here. And then you would see him at the locker, and he would be studying a script and plays all the time, just sitting there. Like you could go up and talk to him by doing it. Kind of like a Lincecum thing. Like Lincecum was like, hey, if you want to talk, I'm not bothered talking.
Right.
Fred Warner, when Fred was first in the league, same thing. He would sit at his locker and study, right? And it's not like you're showing off to the media that you're studying. It just so happens the media is coming in there at the same time. Brock had the same thing. So, I mean, this kid has got it dialed in.
Cam, anything else? Any other takes you need to unload here?
Probably. I do enjoy your show a lot.
Thank you.
I listen to probably 3 podcasts. Yeah.
What's your list? Do you want to share?
Well, one of them is 49ers Talk with Matt and Jen.
Okay.
But they're my loyal road compadres. So I always listen to them. They're great. So then you, And the third one rotates because I'll delete, like I'll try to get a player one for a while and I'll enjoy it, and then I'll delete it after a while because I'm like, I've heard enough about him. So it kind of rotates. And then there'll be like one or two of like some like great podcast. I'm like, Smartless, I occasionally will, but then I'm not that committed to a podcast. Like if I'll go on a run or a walk maybe, but yeah, you guys do great.
Cam, is it short for Cameron?
It is short for Cameron. This was like in high school, I was always Cameron. And then when I started when I turned pro as a sports writer when I was 16 in Cupertino, it's my first paycheck for the Cupertino Courier, my senior year of high school. I changed it to Cam because it's quicker to write. Like all the Mercury News sports writers it was Dan, Bud, Mark, and I'm like, shit, you got to have a one-syllable name. So, and you're not going to believe this, and this has nothing to do with like the sports writing byline stuff. My wife Jen and I have 3 kids. She's Jennifer. Jen or Jennifer.
Yeah, I got
Our
that.
3 kids are one-syllable names: Kate, Brooke, and Grant, and that was on purpose. So it's easier to yell, Kate, Brooke, Grant.
And what is Inman?
2 syllables.
No, but where are the Inmans from? Where are those people from?
My father was born in Scotland. My mother was from Buffalo. As Al Davis would say, how's your mother? So yeah.
Wow.
You never heard that story?
No.
Oh God.
What's that story?
Well, you'll have to. This is like Bay Area sports media.
Yeah.
Legendary stuff. When he fired Lane Kiffin and was introducing Tom Cable at that press conference, like I was on good terms with Al for 2 years because I had a one-on-one interview with him in his office for 3 hours, the best interview I've ever done.
Wow.
So Al got to know me and blah, 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 and then it turned out like, so he fires Kiffin, and we're in this press conference, and you have to introduce your name, Cam Inman, Bay Area News Group, and lights came on just like that. And before I could get my question, Al says, oh, hello, Cam, how's your mother? And so you'll hear Papa and everybody on the radio whenever I go, so Cam, how's your mother? And my mom she's still going, knock on wood, and but yeah, for 20-something years, I've heard that.
Do you still have the audio of your 3-hour interview with Al?
Yeah. In fact, the transcription I have, it reads like it could be its own book because I left every F word in there.
Yeah.
There was probably about 42
Can you
fucks.
do something with that?
I don't know. I mean, it is like, because it was supposed to be about Madden, and it was only about Madden for like 2 of the 80 questions.
Yeah.
Because Al used that time to go off on so many different tangents, which made it so cool. And like by the end, he was telling me how he would solve peace, or he would make peace in the Middle East. He'd talk about naval warship movements, talk about the NFL Network, talk about journalism, talk about everything, and it was awesome. But the best part about it was like after like one of the Raider games, he said, after we like did an impromptu interview with him in the locker room, he says, "By the way, I heard from your mother." I'm like, "What? What are you talking about?" He goes, "Your mother, she wrote me a very nice note from meeting with you." I'm like, "Oh my God."
Oh, that's
so
incredible.
I call my mom, I go, "How many people have I interviewed that you've written thank you notes to?" She's like, "No, just that one."
Yeah, you can't find a person's email now. That's from a time. It wasn't that long ago.
It wasn't
but a
an
time when
email.
you
It
could-
was a
Well, I know.
letter.
Now you could just send anybody a letter and they would get it. Now I don't. You know, somebody's secretary is going to filter that email out before it gets to
And
them.
if all players, they just get DMs. Like
They just
people
get-
slide
they
into
do get
DMs.
Yeah, they do get DMs. They do see all the DMs.
Yeah. I'm gonna have a book out next year.
Well,
this year.
What's your book?
49ers. It's called The Franchise. But you know what's funny? I was telling Travarius Ward that in the locker room, and he goes, I go, "Hey, I hear you. I like to read a lot of books." He's like, "Yeah, I'm writing one." He's like, "Oh, what's it about?" I go, "The 49ers." He's like, "I don't want to read that." He's like, "I read murder mysteries."
That's good.
Right?
That's good. All right.
Is there anything else on your mind?
Nope. We got.
Is that it? Time to cut out?
Well, I mean, yeah.
It's Tito's time.
It's Tito's time. It is Tito's time.